Ben 10 is a series with a variety of designs and a variety of characters. I've already talked about all my opinions on all of Ben's aliens in this video, which you guys seem to love. So now I'm going to be talking about all the various characters and antagonists of the series and telling you my favorite and least favorite designs for all of them. Remember that when you're watching this is all just my opinion. This is what I like and what I don't like, so don't get mad at me please if I don't like something that you like. That's the intro covered, so let's jump into my favorite and least favorite character designs, starting with Grandpa Myaxx. Looks pretty much the same from all series, but I gotta give it to the classic series for this one. He's just portrayed better in the classic series, and I just really love some of the lessons that we got from him there. I know we still get some Grandpa Myaxx lessons later on in the series, but they just hit better in classic series. Plus, I think his design just translates better to the classic series art style. My least favorite design for Myaxx is probably his Omniverse version. And this is a good time to bring up something that you guys were commenting a lot on in the last video. Why did I not include any reboot designs? I didn't include any of the reboot designs because I didn't think any of them were really good enough to stand near all the classic continuity designs. But also, I didn't want to spend the whole video just ragging on all the reboot designs. Plus, the reboot is made for a completely different demographic and it wouldn't really feel fair ranking them together. And the art style is just so different that it feels like I'm ranking it from a different show entirely. And it will persist in this video as I will not be including any reboot designs. But back to Myaxx, I'm not really too big a fan of what they did with his eyes on Omniverse, and the white pants are cool, I guess, but it just doesn't really hit the same as the classic series, that's all. For my favorite future Myaxx design, it's probably the first version of him we saw in Ben 10,000, which was probably about 20 years into the future. I like this design because it's pretty much just a step up from the original design, and I think his technological elements is weaved in really nicely here. I don't really know if I could choose a least favorite future design because the other one just doesn't really look too similar to Myaxx for me to really rank it properly. Also, the one from Omniverse is kind of just Myaxx but old, so I'm not picking a least favorite here. My favorite design for Kevin is probably his Ultimate Alien version. I think this is where he's portrayed the best, and I think his character really grows in this series. I mean, I guess it's not really also fair to compare him to Omniverse since he doesn't really show up that much, but ultimately this is still my favorite Kevin design. I love how he's portrayed, I love all the jokes he made, and I think his design really translates well to this art style. Although that's not to say the other designs don't. I think all three Kevin art styles really do translate well to the series they're a part of based on his age and design. Although if I had to pick a least favorite design, probably his Omniverse flashback version. I feel like the classic series art style works for his younger self, but I don't know why, I just don't really mess with how Omniverse draws his younger self. Maybe just because Omniverse proportions or the Router's uniform, I don't know. My favorite future Kevin design though is probably the original series version. I love how long his hair is and they still persist a chin scar even back then. Plus his powers were really cool in the original series. And I suppose the least favorite has to go to Omniverse, but this is not saying that Omniverse is bad, which I want to bring this up as well. A lot of you guys think from my last video that I really hate Omniverse because of how many of them I guess I picked for the worst. But just because something is the worst doesn't mean that it's bad. Sometimes something is picked as the worst just because it's the only option I have left. My favorite Kevin mutation is probably the Kevin 11,000 mutation. The classic series just did Kevin's mutations right, and the black heat blast rocks just hit so well here. He's also got really interesting alien designs which you don't really get to see in a lot of others mutations, since here we're not limited to Ben's Omnitrix. His voice is great, his powers are great, and the episode we saw him in was absolutely amazing. My least favorite Kevin mutation is definitely his Alien Force Season 3 one. I don't think anyone's really going to argue with this, and I think this is pretty unanimously agreed as the worst Kevin mutation. Firstly, it's from Alien Force Season 3, so obviously it's got a pretty bad stigma around it, but also the mutation was just really boring. He didn't actually change body shape at all. He got cool powers from it, but it just looks too similar like materials despite the crew saying that it's not materials and it's alien DNA, in which if it is alien DNA then comparing it to the rest it just looks even worse. So yeah, this is not a good design in my opinion. My favorite design for Azmuth is probably his UAF version. I think his outfit looks the best here and I think the circular shapes really work well for him rather than the kind of hexagonal shapes that Omniverse does. I like the spots that Omniverse gives him though. I think that was a really cool design choice. But the UAF Azmuth just has this sort of vibe to him that you just can't really beat, honestly. My least favorite design though is probably his classic series version. I honestly am not really too big of a fan of it. I don't think Azmuth really needs to wear an Omnitrix suit. I think it's a little bit on the nose. And I also don't like how he's kind of young-ish here. I don't know. He's like thousands of years old. But the classic series just kind of make him seem like too young. I don't know. I think the older, grudgy version works better for him. Dr. Animo actually has a lot of designs, so it's kind of hard to pick for this one. But I suppose I'll give it to his classic series version here. I think this is where his character best fits into his like character description, I suppose, where he's not like this big mustache twirling villainy, where he's more just like a mad scientist in a grudgy apartment making weird mutations, and his contraptions in the classic series just look really cool. I suppose I can give my least favorite design to Ultimate Alien. It's not that it's bad, it's just that it's like really basic and it doesn't really give Dr. Animo vibes to him. He doesn't really have a uniform like the other series do. and that's kind of disappointing. But I guess you could say this is where Dr. Animo was just a regular guy, and then in Omniverse he turned crazy again, but still, I'm picking it as my least favorite. Now, Kai doesn't really have that many designs, but I'm actually going to give it to her Omniverse Future version here. I don't know why, but I feel like her teen Omniverse version just doesn't really speak to me that well, but her adult version actually works really well. I feel like Kai works better if she's made more mature looking rather than like a childish teenager, I guess. It's kind of hard to judge for this one when you're really just basing it on 3 different age groups. For Kenny, I'm actually willing to give it to his Omniverse version here. I feel like because in the classic series he looks exactly like Ben, it kind of takes it away from me here, because realistically, children don't look exactly like their parents, they look like a mashup of their parents. And I think the Omniverse version really hits the nail on the head with that one. Plus I think the Omniverse style really works for him here, and I like his hair. I don't know, it's just cool looking. By the way, I'm not taking Spanner into account with this. For Charmcaster, I think her UAF design is probably the best here. I think it fits her vibe the best in that particular series. Now, Charmcaster does have like a different personality in every series, but I think the Ultimate Alien Force one just fits that one best. UAF was when they really started leaning into that kind of Teen Titans-esque designs, and I think that Charmcaster really would fit into that series there. I think my least favorite would probably have to go to Omniverse. It's not that it's bad or anything, it's just that Charmcaster doesn't really do much in Omniverse, and she kind of just like flip-flops between like villain and not really hero, but just there. I don't know. Omniverse just doesn't really portray her the best, that's it. For Attea and Milius, I think the Omniverse version is way better than the UAF version. I mean, Attea is older here and the UAF version just looks way too basic. Like, even for Ultimate Alien Force, I think this is too bland of a design. Omniverse really gives her some life to her character, and I think she's more entertaining here. And Milius, I don't know, the Omniverse one's just better. For Hex, I want to give it to his Omniverse version, but I feel like because he's not a villain, I can't really give it to him. Nah, you know what? His Omniverse version is the best. He's so suave and he's so classy here. The suit just looks amazing on him, and the face paint actually really works here. I feel like here you can actually tell it's supposed to be face paint, whereas the other ones he kind of just looks pale and dead. I guess that is the point of having a skull on your face, is to look dead, but here he makes it look like it's intentional. And plus, Hex is a good guy now, so gotta love that. The worst design is definitely the Ultimate Alien version. He just looks way too boring and basic here. Ultimate Alien likes to simplify designs a lot, and for some characters it works, but for some characters like Hex, where he really needs to be like accentuous and have a lot of interesting designs to him, I think it works better if he's in Omniverse. For SixSix, it's definitely gotta go to Classic Series. The SixSix fall-off is crazy when you realize how cool he was in the Classic Series. He was a lot more organic and had a bunch of cool gadgets to him, especially in the movie and the pop-up lore they made from him, where he was a creature who wore the armor of an assassin he gutted. Like, that sounds so sick, but the fall-off in Omniverse is actually insane. In Omniverse, they kinda just made him a robot, which is really disappointing. And the Classic Series charm and design traits just really work better for SixSix. Will Harangue, I actually like his Omniverse version better. I think it fits the exaggerated news reporter aesthetic better, whereas in Ultimate Alien, he kinda just looks like a normal guy, and I think that works pretty good, but I feel like in Omniverse, it just works a lot better. Considering he's meant to be this crazy news reporter who's just hating on a teenager. Although we all know the squid design is the best one. I think for Argit, his best design could go to Omniverse here. I like they made him look more like a rat and less humanoid here, and I think his clothes work better, and I like his little piercings he's got in his ear. In Ultimate Alien, the design isn't bad, but I just don't really like his character here in Ultimate Alien, and I think his haircut works better in Omniverse. For Manny, his UAF design is definitely better. I don't like his Omniverse design. I think the plumber suit covering his whole body just looks really weird. He looks kind of like an astronaut here, when he's not really meant to be that. He's kind of just meant to be a, I don't know, a Tetraman warrior. And also, as you guys know, I don't really like how they draw Tetramans in Omniverse. For Helen, I'm also going to have to give it to her Ultimate Alien Force design. The green suit works better than the plumber suit in my opinion, and I think her white eyes in Omniverse kind of make her look a little bit lifeless, and I think it's just cool in Ultimate Alien we get to see a Kinocelerin. Although for Alan Albright, I'm going to give it to his Omniverse version here. I like they made him look kind of distinct from Heat Blast, whereas in Alien Force, they kind of make him look exactly like Heat Blast, which I get that was the point of when he was introduced, is that he's meant to look like Heat Blast, but does kind of take away from the specialty that Heat Blast has, so I think it works better if they make him look a little bit different and a little younger than him. Plus his human form just looks more interesting in Omniverse. In my opinion, Cooper's best design is his Ultimate Alien version. I'm actually a really big fan of his transformation in Ultimate Alien, and I think it makes sense for him to try and be like more muscular and look like Kevin, and I think it makes sense that even he might have done something technologically to himself to make him look better. Plus he's voiced by Chris Pratt, which is just kinda cool, I guess. Least favorite design though is probably his Classic Series version. I think the chubby Smart Kid version works better than the little skinny Smart Kid version. He only appeared in -10, but I also didn't really like him in -10 that much, honestly, and I didn't really like how they portrayed him in -10 with him doing the whole like weird ticket thing, so yeah, I don't know, just give it to Ultimate Alien here. I think we're about halfway through the video at this point, and if you're watching this far without hitting the subscribe, then please consider doing it so we can get to 10k subs. Anyways, back to the video. For Elena, I don't know. I think I can give it to her Omniverse version even though she only appeared in one episode. I'm just going off of design basis only, and I think this version works way better than the Ultimate Alien one. I think in Ultimate Alien she looks really old, which is like kind of weird considering she's like trying to be in a relationship with Ben. And Ben is 16 in Ultimate Alien. She looks at least like 22. So I think the Omniverse version does a better job at kind of toning down her age and making her seem less like a creep. Tetrax has got to go to his classic series version. His reveal in the classic series was so cool, being the same alien as Diamond Head, and even though he looks just like Diamond Head, he does have distinct differences like in his uniform. And he's also his own person with his own characteristics. And the hoverboards are just sick, and he doesn't ride them anymore, which is so annoying. Least favorite version has got to be UAF. I'm sorry, but they just don't do him justice in UAF. He's just not the same as in the classic series. He doesn't ride the hoverboards anymore. They draw him really weird. His uniform is just kind of simplified and bad. And he's associated with the Secret of Chromastone, which is probably one of my least favorite episodes of Alien Force. For Vulcanis, I think I'm actually willing to give it to his Omniverse version here. At first I didn't really care for it because I don't really remember what Vulcanis is like in Omniverse, and I just assumed that his Ultimate Alien version would be better, but after comparing the two designs, the Omniverse version is far better in my opinion. I like that they really go hard with the whole construction aspect of him, and then he's now got these little excavator hands, which I think is really cool considering he's like a Tatanite fiend. For my least favorite version, I think I can give it to the classic series for this one. It's not really that it's bad or anything, it's just that we only get to see it in one episode, and I think it's just a little boring. And also the episode he was introduced in classic came right after Grudge Match, which was an episode who had a Detravite in it who looked exactly like Vulcanis. But yeah, I think his classic one is just a little bit too different from his future appearances. For the Vreedles, I think they all look better in Omniverse. The Vreedle Brothers, it could go either way, but I think Omniverse just kind of edges it out here, mainly just because I think the series art style works better for them. But for Marv Vreedle, she definitely looks better in Omniverse. I think our Ultimate Alien version is kind of uncanny and weird, the fact she's wearing like a big pink dress. Whereas in Omniverse, she really does look like she's an alien that's just taken a bunch of human clothes and just slapped it on. Zombozo, I don't really care about Zombozo, but I suppose I can give it to his classic version. The one classic episode we get of him, he's actually like cool and scary, whereas later on he just becomes a joke. Yeah, the worst design is Ultimate Alien. This is where he really just becomes a Joker parody with all his gadgets, and the episode we get of him in Ultimate Alien is just a pretty bad episode in general. And also, I don't know why, but the Ultimate Alien shapes and art style just does not really work for him, honestly. I think he works way better in the classic series. For Eon, I'm actually having a really tough time deciding which one is his best. And this is because I'm not actually a fan of any of them really. But I think the Race Against Time one can actually edge out the other ones here. I think he looks better with his like biker aesthetic and his big biker helmet, because then he looks more ambiguous and he can blend in with human society more. And I think the helmet here is pretty cool as well. Least favorite design though, I guess it's Ultimate Alien is my least favorite. I don't know, I kind of don't really like either of them. But the Ultimate Alien one is just a bit too basic, and I do like that they try to make the Omniverse one a little bit more interesting. Also, what they do with him in Ultimate Alien, with him being like an alternate event, is just kind of weird, honestly. I don't really think they needed to do that. My favorite design for Ben is also pretty tricky, but because there's actually things I like about each of them. I like his portrayal in Ultimate Alien, I like the classic series art style, and I like the outfit of Omniverses. It's really tough to pick a favorite here, but I think I'm gonna go with Ultimate Alien. I would give it to Alien Force, but Season 3 of Alien Force kind of just ruins that for me. And his outfit here is probably the most iconic Ben uniform with his green jacket. It's probably the most iconic outfit from the series. My favorite future Ben design though is definitely classic series. I think he fits into the universe the best there, and I think he truly looks like an aged version of Ben. Plus the 2 episodes we get of them are some of the best episodes in the classic series. And he rides the hoverboard, and we get cool aged versions of his aliens. My least favorite future version though is probably Omniverse. I think he looks too sci-fi and weird, and I'm also not a fan of the Bi-Omnitrix that much. I do like that they persist the beard in the future versions every time, but I don't know, something about the Omniverse version, I just don't really see him being Ben. I don't know why, I feel like Ben just wouldn't wear this weird sci-fi like uniform stuff. I feel like he'd just wear normal clothes. My favorite Gwen design is probably going to go to Alien Force here. Between Alien Force and Ultimate Alien, it's just do you like the blue uniform or the red uniform, and I think the blue one looks better. And I think Alien Force is where they really struck gold with their character. They made her a more formidable fighter, more mature, and more of just a good person in general. My least favorite Gwen design is honestly probably the classic series version. I actually don't mind the Omniverse version that much, honestly. I think it's just that people over-exaggerate how bad it is, and sometimes they just draw it bad in the show. But I guess because I wasn't really a big fan of the Gwen in the classic series, it just kind of stuck with me that a design is just bad. But a design isn't bad, it's just the least good out of all of our designs. My favorite future Gwen version is probably the first classic series design we get. I think this is the most realistic version of how Gwen would look in the future, and I like her superhero costume here. I think it works well, and the charms of Bazelle in her armor is a really nice detail. Plus I like that she still keeps the cat elements. I suppose my least favorite future Gwen version is probably Omniverse. It's literally the exact same design as the classic series version, but I just think that classic series art style translates better to this design. And I don't know why, but if you look at her key art, she's like really buff here, which I don't think that's how Gwen would look as like a superhero. Considering that Gwen isn't really the buff type, she's more of like the agile martial arts type. And I don't know why they made her look so like beefy here. For For Albedo, I think I could give it to his teen Omniverse version here. I like that he looks more distinct from Ben, having like different hairstyle and all that. I mean, I know it looks the exact same, but like if you look closely, it's like slightly different. And I kind of like how he becomes this like big mustache twirling villain in Omniverse. I think it's kind of funny. Whereas I think in UAF, he's kind of just too much of a palette swap of Ben, and they don't really utilize him as best as they could. My least favorite design for Albedo is probably his Omniverse kid version. In my opinion, I just wasn't really a big fan of Albedo turning into a kid. I think it's like a good punishment for him, but the design just isn't really that great, and I don't like the weird hand Omnitrix they give him. I honestly cannot think of why they would have given him this, because Ben didn't have this in the classic series, and we've never seen any Omnitrix user like this. And I think he's also just too similar to young Ben here. Professor Paradox is a very divisive one in the fandom, but I think I'm slightly leaning more towards the UAF version. I am not a big fan of his Omniverse version because I think it's just too much of a design change, and I do get that they acknowledge it in the show that he actually did change his design, and I like that he has the Chrono Navigator in his hand, but something about it is just kind of too much for me. I think some of the yellow trimmings and stuff are cool, but we didn't have to go that much into the steampunk aesthetic, and I think this is a design where the simplicity really works for UAF, and he's more of just like this mysterious, unbeknowing time walker. Although I think the best design for him would kind of be like a mix between the two of them. Something right in the middle of not too boring and basic, but also not too over-designed. Forza Scare, my favorite design is definitely his classic series version. He just looks so cool in the classic series, and the reveal of him breaking out of the Ghostfreak body is just such a sick scene. The upside down skull and like the sickly grey color just works really well for him, and I think the classic series really does well at making him look scary. Least favorite design is probably Omniverse's. I don't really know why they flipped the skull back over, but I think it was kind of cool that they had him upside down. It was like a really interesting design trait that kind of set him apart from different skeletons. I don't know, I like the scythe that they give him, and I think it's cool that he has a weapon now, but the cloak for some reason just doesn't work that well. And for the final character of this list, we have Vilgax, who I think is definitely got to go to his classic series version. I made a whole video on why Vilgax in the classic series is the best, but basically his classic series version was actually scary and menacing, and when he showed up into an episode, it was actually a big deal. I explained it in my original video, but I think one of the best ways to have a character be cool and menacing is to have a really cool voice and a mask on. It just makes a character that much more threatening. Steve Blum does an amazing job at voicing him in the classic series, and his colors here just work really better. I like to give him that kind of lime green color. My least favorite design is definitely his Omniverse version. I've got a big soft spot for UAF, so I think that might be biased a little bit, but I'm actually not too much of a hater of his warrior design. I think it makes sense as to why he has all the weapons and he did like the Conqueror's Challenge and stuff like that, but I think coming off of the classic series, it makes you wonder why he would even need to do that in the first place. Whereas in the classic series, he came really close to defeating Ben, and it doesn't really seem like he needed that much more power. I think his Omniverse version tries to take him back to his classic series roots, but it just does not work for him at all. Omniverse just doesn't do a good job at making him look menacing, and Steve Blum does come back to voice him, which is cool, but it just doesn't work the same. Maybe because he doesn't have a mask on. They overused those little node things on his arms way too much, and I understand why he has them because he had them in the classic series and it gave him his super strength ability, but he doesn't have that ability in Omniverse, so they're kind of just useless there. He's got his red armor back, which is kind of cool, but it's just not the same as the classic series, man. His face is ugly, his clothes are ugly, everything about him just sucks, and I hate this design. And that's it. That's all the characters, at least that I have a list, that have differences in the designs worthy enough to talk about in a video. Again, remember, this is all just my opinion, and I hope I didn't offend you with anything I said. I mean, it's Ben 10, so hopefully no one really gets offended anyways. I hope we can all see this video for what it is and just what I think of the characters. Remember, if you got any opinions on your own, then just drop them down in the comments and I'll be sure to read them all. And that's all I really got for now. So maybe just subscribe so we can get to 10k and like, because that would be really cool. And that's all I really got for now. I'm Rizzyrez, and until next time, I'll see you later. Peace.